All right. I'm all alone recording the intro because we needed an intro to this podcast. Basically, the TLDR is that Growl and I are joined by Zorthas to talk everything PTR related. It's already 2 hours long. We don't need to discuss anything in regards to the intro. We're going to have Squishy back next week to discuss everything that's happened so far over the last couple of weeks. There's been a little bit of drama in regards to add-on development or whatever the hell else has been going on. But let's jump into the video where we talk to Zorthas about what's been going on with the PTR. All right, and we are joined by your streamer's favorite streamer, the 15-time Oceanic First Raider, peaking at World 9th this tier, 6th place in the MDI on Team Obey Alliance, a TGP competitor, and Enhancement Shaman Enjoyer. We are joined this week by Zorthas. Welcome.
Hello.
That was an intro.
You like that? I felt like that one was pretty good. Okay, so this week we're going to be talking about the PTR and everything related to the PTR. Zorthas has been probably making some of the best content related towards the PTR this cycle. I would recommend going and watching some of his stuff if you're looking to see what has actually changed on the PTR. Zorthas, so far, what's been your favorite change, I guess, about going into next season? I think we can actually start with that.
Pinging cooldowns. I like that I can ping cooldowns. I think it's the most positive, the most unubiquitous. Is that a word? The most positive change that it could be. There's nothing negative about it, I think.
What is the purpose of being able to ping your own health? I feel like there's absolutely no use for that other than just to flame your healer. Am I wrong here? Like, what information are you providing about pinging your own health?
Yeah, that one is really weird. That one's just like purely just for being toxic. I feel like the cooldowns are good.
There's actually some cool uses. Like I was playing with we were doing one of the dungeons. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. We were playing with a Prot Warrior, and he was pinging his spell reflect. And so, like, when he wanted no kick, and so, you know, normally when you're looking at like your screen on the battlefield or whatever, you see the spell reflect icon above his head, like in the chat bubble, and you know he's trying to reflect. And it took me a time or two to realize what he was doing, but I'm like, wait, that's actually kind of cool. I wonder what other emergent gameplay ideas will come from like people being able to ping stuff. Because on one hand, like the service level is like, you know, oh, I'm pinging my combustion, it's up, I want you to do a big pull. But I feel like there are a lot of random small uses for being able to ping abilities. You know, like let's say you are a DPS, you can ping that, oh, my defensive is up, right? Kind of like means, hey, I'm going to use it on the next big damage. Likewise, you can like ping your defensive is not up, which just means like I'm gonna, you know, I need help or whatever. I feel like there's a lot of room for people to communicate in pugs and in raids and stuff. I do actually think that's a very, very underrated change.
Yeah, I actually like how it's like it goes in the save bubble above your character's head. I was doing a key with Zorthas earlier, and he's pinging his true shot whenever it was available, and then the tank definitely pulled bigger because of it.
Oh no, it's because he was gonna chain. I pinged it because I thought like he should like delay the chain. Maybe it was a bit dangerous. No, there are some good uses. Poison cleansing totem. There's like mods that do AoE poison. I've been like pinging my poison cleansing totem, and I'm gonna use it on a wave. There's I mean just cooldowns in general. Someone pings lust. We're like going into a boss. Someone pings their lust cooldown, and then everyone just pings their CD. I think like I was doing that with like Kalt or something. He would ping time warp, and then we'd ping like ascendance, etc. There's a PI. I had
That's a good one.
I was playing with a hunter, and I didn't know when to PI him, and he would just ping his true shot every time. So yeah, it's pretty good. And then you can ping like defenses. If I like feel scared, I ping like astral shift on cooldown.
It's nice because you can ping your CDM too. Like you don't even need to like ping. Like I was essentially using Ellesmere UI and having my CDM entirely reskinned, and you don't even need to find it on your skill bar. Like you can literally just ping it off of your cooldown manager, which I think is a really, really cool side effect of the way that. As much as I like to complain about add-ons, it is a nice feature of the, you know, the current way add-ons are set up with the CDM.
All right. Let's talk about probably one of the most hotly contested things about this patch, gearing. So gearing is changing pretty significantly, and I think Zorthas, I think you probably have the best read in terms of what is the exact gear discrepancy that players are going to have. So I think a lot of the stuff that I've been seeing on social media, there's been a lot of negative sentiments around the 9 out of 6 myth track gear, and the cantrip effects. What is your read on some of these gearing changes that we're actually receiving in the next version of the PTR?
Uh, well, a summary of what I think. I think while it is good to reward um killing the last boss in the raid, I think it is good to have some minor upgrades. I do think the rewards of the second last boss may be a bit too excessive, and contribute to a bit too big of a discrepancy. But there's also a lot of like nuance behind everything, including like the 6 out of 6 things that actually some people will have better gear than normal in certain weeks, I'd say.
So in general, you think you like the idea of the raid having better gear? I mean, not to like put you on the spot or whatever, but I think they kind of got themselves in an interesting situation where they've been making M plus gear like better and better and better over the last few seasons. I'm sure like everyone's kind of seen, and now I feel like they hit their point where they're like, "Uh oh, we kind of like made raiding not as good as it should be." Do you agree kind of with the walk back of like, okay, we need to think about how raiding should be a little bit more special, or do you think like where they had it was fine with just like a couple trinkets or whatever? Like, what would be your ideal relationship between rated and plus gear?
Well, I mean, yeah, I like the idea, but I think the execution is a bit amiss. I think you should kill an end boss and you should get drops that are good.
Yeah.
Like, if you remember Dementius, that boss dropped
Yes.
nothing.
That guy gave
Like,
nothing.
you get like some like plate boots and like a cloth wrist or something. You kill the amboss and you actually get nothing. You get like a two-hand strength axe, but everyone already has like weapons and crafted weapons already, so it doesn't matter. There's like a ring, but it was kind of small. I actually think Lura is kind of all right for that right now. Like you have the Lura ring is like a big not a big upgrade, but it's a pretty notable upgrade for a lot of classes. And then all of the other items are like guaranteed tertiary, although it's only leech. So I think Lura is like it's definitely a step up from Dementius, and I think it's fine for like the 3 eye levels. Like it's like 3 eye levels on weapons, 3 eye levels on necks, etc. I think
Yeah.
that kind of thing is fine. Um, I just think the penultimate boss. Do, they also like added more items to the penultimate boss. If you didn't see that,
They
um,
added more? Well, I didn't even notice
y-
that.
you know how there were 2 cloth items and 2 plate items, but only one of leather and mail.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just made it's two of all now. They added a leather and mail item, so there's a parity for armor
Hmm.
types. But I do think it maybe gets a bit excessive. A lot of items of that boss.
Yeah. So something that's also interesting that I think you point out more than I would say other people whenever they're talking about the gear changes for next patch is the crest discrepancy between somebody who's raiding and somebody who's not. Do you think that like if somebody who is just a Mythic Plus player, do you think that they're going to feel further behind this next season compared to seasons in the past? Is that like pretty undeniable with some of the changes to the raid, or do you think that's just more of a perception thing?
I mean, what is just a mythic class player? Because there are people who would never step into a raid, and then there are people who join mythic pugs, like they would pug chimeras for like gays. I feel like a lot of mythic plus only players have pug chimeras for gays,
I
right? I
think
feel
that's
like that's
fair.
very
Yeah.
standard now.
Yeah.
And then there's like another caliber who like joins organized runs and does like up to like dragons, etc.
Yeah, I would say for I would say like pugging chimeras and or first boss, but basically nothing else, right? Like I think if you're for the average person, I think if you're doing high keys, then you're also able to do chimeras or whatever. But no expecting somebody to be doing like dragons or whatever.
Yeah, see, so there is like there's a single boss raid. There's the lair boss.
Yeah, the flex guy.
There's yeah, there's it drops a good int trinket, but it's not a gaze. And then it drops a bunch of other pieces of loot that are like kind of meh, just like chimeras. And then there's the raid itself, and I mean, I predict the first 3 bosses to be not too hard. After a few weeks, I think those will be like pretty reasonable to pug, just like up to Saladar is reasonable to pug now.
Are you sure the first boss looked
Um,
like it was the hardest boss in the
the
entire
fir-
raid?
Okay, the
Yeah.
first boss is hard, but that's gonna get fixed. There's no world where a first boss will ever be hard. So I'm assuming that gets fixed. But apart from that, the first three bosses are probably gonna be puggable. If you can go in and do the layer boss or early mythic bosses and get vault loot or use bonus rolls in those bosses, you are getting 6 out of 6 gear as a mythic plus player that pugs some early mythic raids. Currently, you're getting 2 out of 6, while raiders get 4 out of 6. But in season 2, you get 6 out of 6, and raiders get 6 out of 6 from your vault. So the vault is actually more equal for those people, and those people are probably the people who the gear is most relevant for. I would assume that most people who are actually pushing title do have mythic gaze. I know this doesn't apply to every single person, but I assume that's the most people in that bucket.
I think that's a fair
Whether
assessment.
they want to pug mythic raid or not, that's another question. But the gear discrepancy in the early weeks for the vault, I actually think is overstated.
Well,
And
a
if you
lot of
don't,
people. I was
if
just
you
gonna say
don't,
that a lot of
yeah,
people
okay,
are.
sorry, you talk, you talk, you talk.
Yeah. How do you think the beginning is gonna play out with? Now, I think you're in kind of an exception because your guild is in that sweet spot where you might, you're gonna kill the boss fairly early. But most people are incentivized to be taking bonus rolls from the vault. No, like on one hand, taking vault like raid vault early on is going to give you a crest advantage, but then on the other hand, you just want to take the bonus rolls and use them in the raid, right?
Yeah, I mean, if your concern is long term power, then there is pretty much nothing better than a bonus roll. I think you'd only ever take like avoidance or like. I mean, if there was like a BIS trinket you got off M plus, that would prevent you having to bonus roll a dungeon, then you'd probably take that. But there's
It depends on how BIS, right? Like, it really depends on how
Yeah.
good the trinket is, because you could get something that's like your second BIS, and if it's close enough, you'd rather have the crests.
I mean, it depends on how. Oh, that also depends on how like future focused you are. There are some good trinkets from plus, like the Fright Runner flask is actually a good minute 30 on use. So say you got that from M plus, or you got an avoidance thing from M plus, and you're like very future focused. Maybe that would be good. But if you don't care about your power in like the first few weeks, then the best thing in every situation, apart from those like minor niche things, would be to take the bonus roll and roll on. Either you roll on a mythic raid boss when you get to it, or you just roll on the last boss on heroic, which is a pretty good roll. Like need like every. If you're not going to kill mythic ul attack, you probably want to roll everything on heroic ul attack.
What do you think about the bonus roll system in general? I feel like this season it felt really good because they kind of just threw it at us. But I'm kind of wondering if the RNG of like bonus rolling your BIS trinket out of the first and the second, or the last time, or the idea of just taking bonus rolls of the vault. I feel like it's gonna kind of wear on people, and they're gonna see the system not as good as it was this season.
And I think the vault is going to be less interesting. So I think bonus rolling in early weeks will be kind of interesting. Like you have like the rush of gambling. You go
I mean,
into
I
a
like
boss and you're
Gamba,
I
gambling.
love gambling.
But then when people lose, they'll get like really mad.
right? Because there's like a huge discrepancy, right? Like, let's say you have Chimeras. If you bonus roll Gaze out of the first attempt, and then you can just move on. I feel like that's so much better than bonus rolling the other pieces or whatever. And then another thing about it too is like not only do you get the item, but then also you can just be done, right? Like as soon as you bonus roll the Gaze out of Chimeras, you never need to go there again.
Well, imagine you're bonus rolling chimeras and you roll the ungemmed gods oozing vistage instead of the gaze.
Huh.
You sack your vault to get a bonus roll, and then you get that trinket. That would be pretty bad.
Right. But like in some weird way, that still is like sort of the best, right? Because ultimately, if you ever need to bonus, like unless you can literally take your best item that prevents you from bonus rolling a source out of the vault, it's just you don't want to take anything else because ultimately you may just bonus roll that item again. And so I feel like it creates this weird perverse incentive where bonus rolls are so powerful, and you just want to stack them on each other because they, like it works with itself as a bad luck protection, and the less bonus rolls you have, the more likely or the more susceptible you are to like, RNG or whatever.
I mean, if you take something out of the vault, it should be removed from the bonus roll loot, I think. Like that seems like, especially if it's being integrated into the vault, that should just be a change that they're looking to make.
I do really think so. I think if you go beyond that, there's like abuse. Like if you were to take like items off of a boss that you looted that took out of the pool, then there's abuse. Like you roll in items you don't need just so you get out of the pool. But for vaults, like you only get one vault a week, and it's only you. No one else is rolling for it. So I don't see any reason why vault items being taken should not be removing them from the pool.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's they. I don't want to say they have to do something because, like you said, right, the gameplay of Gamba is fine, and it's not really that much different ultimately than what we had before. But I just think that the premise behind bonus rolls and the excitement that they brought this season as sort of like an unexpected thing is gonna fade away. It is really nice to be able to gear an alt though. The idea that you have those like it's basically a way that you have all of your vaults, right? Like when the bonus rolls stack up halfway through the season, you can basically just start a new character and start bonus rolling the shit out of whatever boss or whatever dungeon that you need. Like that was at least convenient for me to be able to like catch up a character really late when I realized mage was not it in M plus.
Well, it's also going to devalue doing actual weeklies on your alts. Like, if you're
Yes.
gearing up, if you want to gear an alt in season 2, you do 8 delves, like 8 level 1 delves a week, or like 4 delves in a normal dungeon or something. You like fill in 3 slots and you take a roll. Like it's like so much easier. You don't have to do like a key or anything.
And then you wait for the
And
Myth of the Dawn.
Have they announced that if they're gonna do anything about Crest guys or whatever? Because I feel like last season everyone, because I mean let's be honest, WoW players just want to min max everything no matter what. And previously in WoW, the idea of having a mirror was just ridiculous because you have so many other better things you can do. But I feel like now with how quickly you can gear and how it's sort of like being drip fed per week as opposed to like how much you accomplish, I kind of feel like one of the best ways to spend your time if you're a sweat lord is to have a crest guy, right, and have a alternate character that you're downgrading crest to throw away or whatever. Did they have they said anything about doing that? Have either of you guys checked the PTR to know if that's still a thing? Because it was essentially before you could downgrade myth crest to hero crest and they wouldn't count against your cap, right? So you could more quickly get the hero of the dawn achievement. And then it was basically incentivized for you to have like a second throwaway character, right?
They haven't said anything, and on the vendor, there are still hero crests that you can buy with myth crests that on the tooltip they say they ignore the cap. But the one thing that I think is going to be different is you don't have heroic week, and you presumably don't have the massive amount of crests from the question mark boss. That was it was 90 crests from that, and then 200 crests from the heroic week.
Yeah.
So I think you don't actually get the hero skip until week like 4, 5, something like that. Whereas in season 1, I think you got it in week 3 easily. So you get it a lot later, and because you're getting like 6 out of 6 items, etc., potentially, or whatever you are getting, high chance you'll be basically done on your main by the time your ult gets it.
That makes sense. Yeah, I didn't think about that. The staggered launch of everything this expansion with the like all the random source of uncapped crests. So there's no heroic week as well. So we basically just go from week 1 that's like nothing and then straight into mythic raid release and mythic plus and stuff.
Yeah, I think the no heroic week is like confirmed.
Yeah, I guess they haven't said anything, but the stuff that they said in the past seems like it's gonna
Uh,
hold true.
they said that Mythic Plus comes out on season release.
Okay, sure.
So yeah, so unless they do something like really weird by complete surprise. There's no heroic week.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a question for Zorthas. I think Zorthas needs to talk some people off the ledge a little bit. So this is a question from Stefan. He says a lot has been discussed about how the hardest mythic raid content should reward the best / most exclusive loot. As someone with over 15 years of Hall of Fame rating behind them, I personally don't want to be on a fixed schedule anymore. So I've accepted that I will always be at least a little bit behind the raiders at the start of the season, which is more than fair. Having said that, my play pattern is the following. I usually play for at least 2 to 3 months of the patch, very actively maintaining a little bit over the title range cutoff. If I end up liking the dungeon pool and one of the specs I enjoy is meta, I will play throughout the entire season. Otherwise, at that point, I either swap to other seasonal games or whatever else I'm going to do for the season. I exclusively play Mythic Plus and plug Heroic or Mythic early on due to the necessity of tier and trinkets. So kind of like what Zorthas was saying earlier with the play pattern. With the 12.1 changes, the minimum item levels of difference between me and an active raider the first 2 months is going to be, and he says 6 just by on crest savings, and potentially even 8 to 10 at the very least if you factor in bonus rolls and looting items naturally. 12.1.5 will bring Venom Core and most likely Crest uncap around week 10. At that point, I'll be able to catch up from the 2 Keystone item levels I'll be behind, and permanently 2 to 3 item levels behind. Previously, Heroic versus Mythic Trinket accessibility was mostly about bad vibes, not the 1% sim DPS. But given how far behind I'm going to be the first half of the season when the game is the most fun and active, being down item levels is not very fun. How am I supposed to feel good and satisfied about my character?
Okay, well, I think
Talk this guy off the ledge.
look. I mean, if he is already doing mythic, like early mythic pugs or whatever, he's already doing that for tier and trinkets. The difference is definitely not going to be 6 or 8 or 10 for eye level because he is going to be getting the 6 out of 6 loot from that. So he's in a better spot in the vault than normal because previously raiders get 4 out of 6 there. Now raiders potentially would have more myth track loot in general. However, you have less crests because there is no heroic week, so that there are less myth crests. You don't need as many myth track items in the early weeks. Or although the 6 out of 6 items kind of mean maybe you do. So that's like a not really anything.
We'll have to see, right?
Yeah. Mythic raiders don't always get the loot, and also a lot of loot in early mythic raid is like kind of evenly distributed. It's not like too common. One guy is like funneled everything. Especially in the new system, it is like completely incorrect to funnel one guy everything. If a guild is funneling one guy everything in midnight, they are like completely doing loot wrong.
Because you need if like somebody has crests to spend, right? Like you want to divide the loot evenly because you want to give people crests or whatever. Or
Yeah.
rather, you want to give people with crests and
Yeah.
items so that they can use those crests. And then you're sort of like taking one piece from the vault and or like bonus rolling a boss per week, and then you're also getting like ideally like 1 mythic raid item or maybe 2 per week depending on how fast the guild's progressing, and then you kind of spend your crest there. So yeah, I think the point that you brought up of he's doing early boss pugs and getting that stuff is kind of important, right? Because that's like a big chunk out of it. Like, yeah, you might not have the 9 of 6 loot, but also you're not really playing. Like, if you're quitting 3 months into the season, like basically nobody has that 9 of 6 loot, right? Like if you run into Zorthas in your pug, yeah, he's gonna have it, but also like he's gonna mog you anyway, right? Like it's not like the random, rank 500 guild people are gonna have the Lura 9 of 6 items in your pug. Although what you did bring up about the second to last boss having it is kind of an interesting thought, because if that boss ends up being somewhat easy, then those items will be a little bit more common.
Okay, so also a thing about the raiders getting like high-end raiders getting early 9 out of 6 mythic loot. First of all, not many raiders do mythic plus. Second, not many raiders are playing meta specs in the end boss kill. So I was thinking about this earlier. So what was the meta at the start of the season? It's Org, DK, DH. I actually think this season Lura was probably like one of the most meta raid specs going to meta M plus specs. So we had
100%.
2 evokers, 2 DH, 2 DKs. one Resto Druid, and no Brewmaster. So we had 7 people that had killed Lura playing meta specs. I think 2 of those actually went and did keys, and 5 of them just didn't. And then so this is a tier where meta specs in raid were like pretty good in keys as well. You look at Metaforge, it was Hunter, Havoc,
Marks, Ellie, or
yeah,
no, BM,
Hunter,
BM, Ellie, something, right? DK?
yeah, BM, Ellie, DK, Havoc. We
Yeah.
had no hunters on Dementius. We had 1 DK. Some guilds had 2. We had 1. We had 1 Ellie. Some guilds had 2 or 3. We had 1. We had 1 Havoc. Uh, we had no Resto Druid. I don't think we played a Resto Druid. And the tank warrior, we didn't have a warrior, but most guilds had a warrior. So we had 4 people in that kill who were playing a meta spec in our Dementius kill. And I think 1 went on to do keys. So the actual conversion rate of people killing the mythic end boss and then going into the key ecosystem and doing keys is not that high. I feel like it's like a common thing that people are scared of, that they don't get invited to groups because their eye level is 3 eye levels below like mythic raiders. You guys have seen that, right?
I
Oh,
think
yeah.
I think that's a common thing to be worried about, right? Because I think that a lot of people look at it as, if there's any other reason that the other person would be invited over me beyond merit, that makes them unhappy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably won't happen early on in like the first few months, because I think the amount of raiders who are going to kill Lura on a meta spec and then do keys and queue up into keys is low. And even like, I mean, we kill it earlier and we have a lot of time, but even other guilds, like other guilds will still have a low amount of meta specs on their kills. And I'm pretty sure most guilds do not have most of their raiders do mythic class. I'm pretty sure most raiders do not try to do mythic class at all.
We probably have like 5 or 6 people in my guild doing Mythic Plus, but we don't even do splits, and we don't allow people to bring their Mythic Plus characters to main raid except for very specific exceptions. But
Right.
like, I feel like most Mythic raiding guilds outside of the Hall of Fame, you're not bringing your Mythic Plus character to the final boss kill. Like, that's not really a thing.
Yeah, it's hard. Like even in our guild, I mean, we're a little bit dysfunctional, but around the level of like Hall of Fame, which in the grand scheme of things is pretty high, it's tough, right? Because we have a lot of people that want to do M plus in our guild, and it's not like everybody can just bring their rat immediately on Lura kill number 2, right? Like that was something that we ran into, and I'm not necessarily advocating for the system to change. I'm more so giving a point in Zorthas' direction of like, if you're a raider, it's not so easy to just be like, hey, I'm playing the meta spec. Here you go, guys. I just show up and I'm showered in all this loot. Everybody really, really wants the loot, and it's very competitive. To go back to the point of the feeling of being 3 eye levels behind, I think this is similar to Titan Forging, but not in the same vein. Is that I don't think it's so much people worried about, oh, I'm not gonna get invited, even though that's what they might articulate. I think the big fear or the problem or friction in the system is, at the end of the day in WoW, we always want to log in and make our guy stronger and get better to the point where we're like, yes, I've done it. I've done all the things. And I feel like when there's something that's unattainable that we don't think it's worth doing, it kind of feels like shit, like to log into your guy, to know that you don't have the best gear, but you also can't really get that path of like, oh, well, I have to literally apply to a mythic raiding guild and treat it like a job or whatever to get those items. And I feel like it's not so much, oh, somebody else is going to take my spot as an evoker because I don't have this gear, because ultimately, like, I could have played my evoker all season with a bunch of people, but it just felt like shit to log in and not have a litany and not have certain items or whatever, when I know I could get them theoretically. And again, I'm not necessarily even advocating for the system to change. I just think it's that feeling of, deep down, all of us, when we play WoW, we want to make our guys stronger, and when the path to making our guys stronger is like mythic end boss, it just feels a little bad to log in, I guess.
I mean, Litany I think is a good example because it's not even off the Mythic End boss, but I don't know how many people who are getting titled don't have Mythic Litany for
I mean,
healers,
Litany
right?
was such a stupid situation for me because of bonus rolls and everything about the raid, our guild literally stopped doing Void Spire because ultimately after you clear it 5 or 6 times, everybody has all the items they need, right? Because if there was a trinket or whatever or something. And so when I decided, okay, I want to start playing AUG and start doing keys, everyone was literally done. Like not only our guild, but like our friend raid or whatever that I talk about. And again, I understand that this is a very small section of the player base that can do these friend raids, but I literally couldn't even get into Void Spire. Like my option would be either to join a random guild that short people in progging in the middle of LFG somehow, or just don't go with a litany. And it was just like a really awkward situation for me that sort of emerged from the way that the raids were separated. Because for the most part, I've been kind of praising the way that the raids set up and the way the raids are separated. But it did kind of bite me in the ass a little bit that this season felt a little off. So there is, I think, some rough around the edges that maybe needs to get figured out with everything in the system.
Okay. Let's move out of gear. Let's talk about the dungeon pool a little bit. So this dungeon pool was released with such disdain for the returning dungeons in Temple of Sethraliss, Ruby Life pools, and King's Rest that Blizzard felt compelled, let's say, to write a very long blue post about the things that they wanted out of the season, the things that they were going to be changing, and the way that they wanted dungeons to kind of be set up. Also, I think within the last couple of weeks, we've had pretty substantial changes to some of the dungeons, where I think they reworked 2 of the bosses in Altar of Fangs. Machimba is a little bit different. They changed up some trash count in Temple of Sethraliss. Zorthas, what are your thoughts after having seen some of the changes over the last couple of weeks? And what do you think about the dungeons in regards to what public perception started out with?
Okay, well, I think that they're really dumb for doing a dungeon pool like this. No like relation to like how the dungeons even are at all. But it's just, I think it's just bad for like hype or whatever. Like the obvious reaction that people are gonna have is that they're not gonna want these dungeons.
Oh, of course.
Like it's very like risky. I feel like. Like
Well, like no payoff, right? Like I don't think like yeah, there's some people that were hype about him, but I think that's a good point that you brought up that like who was sitting here, who is going to be really excited by these dungeons? Because ultimately part of bringing back old stuff is to not really fan service, right? To be like, you know, oh, like when Freehold came back or Motherlode or whatever. But with these dungeons, it's like who. I get that we have to bring them back sort of eventually, but like who was asking for this?
I mean, the payoff is that the dungeons come out and they're actually good and fun. But I mean, that's like TBD. And it's like they're like working uphill. Like they have to, like, not only do the dungeon have to come out and be good and fun, but they have to be like good enough to counteract the negative vibes that everyone already has about them.
I mean, KR is like legacy known as like one of the worst dungeons of all time. You have Ruby Life pools, which I think that so many people just had a bad experience in Ruby Life pools a few times, and they just remember it for those terrible experiences. And then Temple of Sethraliss, I feel like the most commonly cited thing with Temple was that time that it got disabled during the MDI. I don't even know if anybody else ever said anything else about Temple. They're just like, yeah, I got disabled in the MDI. That dungeon sucked.
Dude, I swear I never had that dungeon bug out on me in BFA, by the way. I don't think my orbs ever like bricked a run.
It was a thing with if you did the orbs too quickly, it would occasionally bug out. So of course it would happen sometimes in the MDI, but it wasn't something that you could even have happen if you were like playing the dungeon like a normal person.
My memory of that, and this could be messed up, was I literally had that happen exactly 0 times when I was doing the dungeon. And also I played that season I played that expansion pretty freaking serious with a lot of people that were really good at that stuff. And while I didn't hear this outright, my impression was that it was just a thing where people in MDI would just like basically, oh, I'm losing, and then just bug out the orb room on purpose. That was kind of my
I don't think you could,
my idea of it.
I don't know if you could do it on purpose. I think it was something like a combination of extra action button, and then like doing like depositing the orbs into the skull too quickly could bug it out.
Yeah, I could be wrong too. Like it's not like I was talking to the competitors and they told me this. That was just my vibe. Was like, it happened 17 times in MDI, and I was doing the highest keys for 12 hours a day, and it never happened.
No,
right?
I think it happened exactly like one weekend. The dungeon got disabled for the entire expansion. It got brought back like 6 weekends in the future. It happened again in one dungeon, and then we never saw the dungeon again.
Yeah, so I that's a good point. Another thing I kind of wanted to talk about in Temple of Seth specifically, but I think applies to a lot of the dungeons. Maybe I don't know why I always have to take devil's advocate or say it's good, because I don't think these dungeons are like the best dungeon pool ever. But one thing I found interesting from healing the dungeons is I feel like they found a good level for like diseases and enrages and damage, where I feel like there's more poisons than ever in these dungeons, and there's more like stoppable casts than ever, and quote unquote bolt slop or whatever. But it feels like, except for a few circumstances, that almost none of them are like, this is super lethal, you have to stop all of them. Does that make sense? Like, all of the things felt like they are good to stop or good to have that poison dispel, but also you don't like necessarily die to them or feel oppressed by them. Or do you, for if you've been playing the dungeons, do you think that's true, or do you think maybe just I haven't done enough keys or played them enough, and that it's still too many mechanics?
I mean, yeah, I think healing is like kind of slower. Everything is like there's like a lot of like debuffs, and you're like always healing them up, but you're never. I feel like you're never like safe from them. You're not never getting one shot by anything. Although Temple, I think, is a kind of egregious, and I think there are like maybe excessive debuffs in Temple, and I have been pretty much one shot by having 2 debuffs applied to me at once. Things
The
like that.
Krollusk and the poison at the same time is really stupid.
Yeah, like those packs, for example, like there is a Krolusk that charges people and puts a bleed on you. There is, I don't remember what the mob is, but it does like a poison that it spreads around a little bit. And then also there is the archers, right? The archers that pick a guy and sort of like channel on you. And it kind of feels like I kind of liked healing that sort of gameplay, to be honest, where like you're constantly thinking about like who's being targeted. Do I use a stop on this? Do I use a dispel on this? Like, do I external them? I kind of felt like, even though I didn't like the dungeons as a whole, like in terms of like the pathing and the design of everything, I kind of did like healing on PTR. I've been kind of liking healing more and more in the way that they have the, it's not necessarily, I feel like the design that they've had recently is like every single mob just does unavoidable AoE damage, and you're just constantly spamming like, whatever your AoE healing shit is in your group defensives. But I feel like there was a lot more moment to moment decision making, and I think that they did a good job with the, make everybody's health go up or whatever. I think it's just a short term effect of that too, but I don't know. I actually really liked healing the PTR dungeons, among other things.
One thing to keep in mind though is we're doing like 18-ish keys in Biskia, and it's likely will go higher than that. So if there are points where things start getting spiky or one-shotting, we probably aren't seeing them yet.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I have a question, Zorthas. How did you kill off all those fear mobs in KR on your paladin? Did you bubble?
You spec Turn Evil. Turn Evil will instantly kill minor aberrations, and there's a talent that makes Turn Evil hit 6 mobs.
It can AoE. Ah, yes, I see.
Holy shit, so this is tip of the week.
Yeah, those mobs are really dumb, by the way. I will be amazed if those mobs make it to live. What are they called? Minion of Zul?
The fear mobs, yeah, at the very beginning, yes.
Yeah. They have the shield that you can't spell steal or you die. I've already been in like 3 groups of mages that spell steal that shield and then die instantly and just say it's a bug.
I was in a pug where I thought the mage got hit by the frontal because he just died, and then literally my team is like, "Oh, it's PTR, is Brazil, go again," right? Which is like fine, whatever. Like, when you die in your cooldowns as a DPS, it feels bad. Then the next pull, he dies again to the frontal. I'm just like, dude, what is wrong with this guy? Like, can you just not fucking stand in the frontal? And then the third time, he was nowhere near the frontal, and I was literally staring at his character, and he just dies out of thin air. And I'm just like, bro, you're spell stealing the thing over and over. And it's so funny that his character is just spontaneously combusting and blowing up, yet he like was being gaslit into thinking that he was doing something wrong, but like not knowing what it is, and it's just like, bro, like I guess he thought he was getting hit by the frontal or something. It's just, I don't know. It's funny that we took for granted in BFA how everybody was Horde, everybody played Blood Elf, we always had like rogues and shit, and so those those like fear bombs are actually so obnoxious to get rid of because you can't even mass dispel them, right? Because it's target capped. You actually need like some sort of goofy AoE way to deal with them.
They changed how they work from BFA. I'm pretty sure. I think like they used to just fixate one guy, but now they fixate everyone, something like that.
Oh, maybe
Yeah,
maybe it
like-
has to do with like combat, right? Where before you could run in with cloak or whatever.
Yeah, I think you used to be able to like cloak them, but I think you can't now, or something like that.
used to be like
That
the only
makes
person that
sense.
was in combat with them, and then I think they would all fixate onto you, and you would whatever them.
Yeah, I believe they just fixate people that are like within a certain area now.
Lovely.
But there are only a few things you can even do to break them now. You have mass dispel, and then you individually purge 3 of them, which is pretty much fine. You have tremor totem, and everyone runs into them and gets tremored. You have warrior fear break exists, but everyone has to be feared already, so it's not very realistic. You have paladin turn evil, which is actually pretty good, although it's kind of annoying to do it on a tank. You have blood elf. Blood elf is definitely the best one, but
Have you considered
nobody
just
is
breaking the
nobody's a blood elf.
shield? Have you considered just breaking the shield?
I've never seen the shield go down. I've never seen it get smaller, so I don't expect that to be a strat. But I think if you don't have those specific classes, I don't think you can actually deal with them apart from like running into them and getting dispelled or something. I tried to do that dungeon with like it was like I was tanking and then I had 2 druids and 2 monks and we couldn't do it. And then I spec turn evil and we could do it. But if I was like a different tank, like a blood DK or something, and I don't know how we would do it. And it's also even worse because the 2 golems at the start of the dungeon, they used to be up the back by the ledge. So you didn't actually have to pull them and you could deal with the minions of Zul before you pulled them. They moved the golems up to the front of the corridor so that you're forced to pull them. And I think the reason for that is because you need 100% count in the dungeon. They didn't want people skipping them and then realizing, oh, we don't have count and then going back later. So they move them to the front of the dungeon. So now the tank has to go in, pull the golems, and then whoever is defusing the minions of Zul has to go and defuse them before they reach the tank and the rest of the group and fear everyone and everyone dies. So I really hope they change something about those.
Yeah, it's funny how I feel like the game has gone in a direction where you don't have weird shit like that. Stuff like that in BFA, I understand that it was changed. It's not quite the same, but I think no one really batted an eye about doing stuff like that. You would have such crazy skips and things that you would do and plans in BFA, but we've kind of gone away so far as a game, or like, the design of the game where these things just stand out so much, right? Yeah, if you just sit and talk about how you're going to do everything at the start, it isn't really a problem, but everyone just kind of slams go and you see it and everybody blows up. And I agree with your analysis 100% that if it made it to live, it would be like a huge pain point where groups would literally wipe before they even have the first pull gathered because they're, running in and then they get feared and then they run into the mobs and the tank doesn't pull them or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I think redoing King's Rest and Temple of Seth and seeing sort of the difference between the mechanics and the way we play the dungeons has been very eye-opening to me about how M Plus as a whole has changed since BFA, and it's kind of interesting that for people who haven't played on the PTR, if you've been playing all this time, once you kind of see, because ultimately, like, there isn't a lot that stands out in these dungeons as like really atrocious or terrible, but so much has changed.
You know how much has changed? I went back and I watched the VOD of our 27 King's Rest season 4 BFA, and max key of King's Rest that was done that season was 28. We had like a top 40 key. We go in after Machimba, we go in and we lost 3 mobs.
Yep.
And then the pull after that, we pull another 3 mobs. And then after that, we pull another 3 mobs. Like this start area here, like you're looking at the start area here. Everyone on PTR does it in one pool. We did it in 4 pools. Every pool was individual in BFA in the VOD I was looking at. It's the way keys are played is definitely kind of different.
Yeah, part of it has to do with the mob design too, though, right? Like in BFA, I feel like some of it was we were bad and not optimized, but a lot of it was the mobs were really just so demonic that you couldn't, right? Like, for example, those guys in the hallway when you lost the 3 mobs, like, those bleed guys, you could literally full wipe to 1 bleed guy if your Demon Hunter wasn't blade dancing or whatever, all of them, right? Like, not even, like, 2 was just like, you're dead. Like, if you have 2 bleeds going out, like, that was literally an unhealable debuff at a 27 or a 28 level back then.
I think that this dungeon also just has a lot less HP on the trash relative to what we used to have, because it used to be like a 40-minute dungeon or something ridiculous, and now it's 33. So I think that they scaled down the amount of HP that everything has a little bit.
I mean, the classes are also different as well.
Yeah, that's true.
I was playing mage in BFA. You know what defenses I had? I had barrier. I had ice block, like the ice block, not
actual ice block. Yeah.
and I had court, and that was it.
Yep.
Like right now, mages have more than that, and they're squishy. And I mean, mages were squishy in BFA, but they weren't like super squishy. They were just like not tanky. But,
right. Part of the reason they were squishy was just that they didn't stack a bunch of verse, and they did a lot of damage. So they had all that corruption. But ultimately, like, they weren't a particularly squishy class if it wasn't for that. Like, that was a normal class back then. If anything, having Cauterize made you pretty fucking tanky. Like, the fact that you had Ice Block, which was an infinite defensive. You have Cauterize, which is like if you mess up, and you had Barrier, which is like a small thing. Like, mages, all things considered, were quite tanky back then. And now they have more than that and are seen as, oh, this class is super squishy, we need help. It's just like so much of a statement of the defensive creep that the game has gotten.
Okay,
another thing about King's Rest that I wanted to talk about too, by the way, before we move on, it was kind of interesting. I'm kind of wondering about your thoughts too on this, Zorthas. Was we talked about this is the first time they've ever done this ever, where every single mob that gives count in King's Rest needs to be pulled. And while in the past we've had extremely linear dungeons, so this isn't really like a big change, right? It's just kind of like a funny statement about things. But one thing that me and Tettles both commented about, how it feels like dungeons are becoming more linear and that routing is becoming less of a thing. And overwhelming, the comments were actually saying that they appreciated that. And people were saying that they didn't like routing as much and they just wanted things to be more streamlined. And it was, I guess, just a weird, and again, a little bit of a sign of the change. And I'm kind of wondering what your thoughts are on overall, like, the purpose of routing an M+ and how the new dungeons feel and the direction that sort of topic has gone over the the last expansion or two. Because I feel like in War Within, Floodgate and Ecodome were both like pretty open, pretty well designed, like interesting dungeons, and then I kind of expected more like that, and then they kind of didn't. And then if anything, we're now in like the very, very like the most linear it's ever been category, at least in my opinion.
Okay, I think King's Rest, it is a linear dungeon. You need 100% count. That doesn't mean there's no routes. I've been in many different routes of King's Rest. I was in you can't do it anymore, but I was in one King's Rest that played 2 golems with the first pull in the Golden Serpent room with Lust. So that was a difference in route. There was I've been in groups that drag Purification Construct into the slime pool in the Machimba room, like maybe like halfway through, and you play like some AoE damage events in the Machimba room. There is pulling the Interment Construct on Machimba. There's the whole bridge after Machimba. There's like you can do like different configurations of mobs. Like you can do like 7-pack into chaining like 5-pack into whatever. I saw I was in a group that pulled the like big stomp guy onto the 3rd boss. So it's just because it's 100% route doesn't mean there is no creativity. And also, I'd say there are also dungeons that weren't 100% route, but you would pull the same mobs every single time, and you'd never ever deviate
Yeah.
from that in other seasons. So I think it's an interesting I think it's an interesting concept, and there are definitely people who don't push high keys and don't want to make their own routes that actually would appreciate it. So I don't mind it. I don't think it's like a sin to have a dungeon like this, or even like a dungeon or two, because I think Ruby is very and can't really do much in Ruby.
Yeah. I
Temple
agree.
too as well. I think
Uh,
to me it feels pretty linear. I think the altar whatever the new dungeon I think is quite linear with not a lot of choices. I kind of felt like I have no problems with certain dungeons being linear, but I kind of feel like the direction or overall vibe has gotten quite a bit more linear in this dungeon pool, I guess. And it may just be an accident based off of, all the
To
dungeons
me,
they brought back or whatever.
it's just like an issue of like I can see it as a problem only if like the first route that you play in that dungeon is also the last route that you play in that dungeon at the very end of the season. Like I don't think that like Zorthas mentioned, there are ways that you can do different configurations of mobs, and that changes the way that the routing feels. At the same time, especially with King's Rest, you are significantly limited in terms of what you are even able to begin to do. Take a dungeon again, like I used this example last week, like Magister's Terrace. That dungeon, most people are playing a similar configuration of mobs throughout the entirety of the season, but you're going to play the exact same route the entirety of the season. I think that that's one of the key differences here. Whereas I would not be shocked if people play the exact same route at the very beginning of the season in King's Rest as the end of the season. Same with Ruby, because Ruby you can only skip like either 6 mobs or a dragon, and then it's one or the other.
Now, my counterpoint is that there are dungeons in the pool that are interesting with routes. A Den of
Yeah.
Naralak has a lot of movement in routes. There's like a massive open first area where you can go any direction. It's seen infinite different pools in the first pool in Den of Naralak. The second area, the second area is very there are a lot of mobs that are like kind of hard. There's a lot of mobs that are kind of easy. Uh, I think at the start of this VOD I do Den of Naralak. Um, should be the second key. The second area in Den of Naralak, I think I've depleted numerous keys because tanks pull several mobs that are kind of not really meant to be pulled together, and then they like skip a bunch of easy mobs.
Landmine
So
mobs,
I think
yeah, sure.
there's a lot of like there's a lot of like creativity and ways that I think this dungeon will evolve. I think it's not a season where every dungeon is a linear route. And then I also think Blinding Veil is interesting. There's like the left and right split, and then even at the end there's a left and right split. And Murder Row is a bit more linear, but there's a lot of things you can do to skip some things.
At the end of Murder
Uh,
Row, you can do some new stuff in there. I think it's not really tested. I don't think so much.
Yeah, and then in Voice Scar Arena is a pretty linear one. They recently buffed the count of Voice Scar Arena, so you need more count. So you need to pull more things
Oh,
at the end.
okay.
But I think that one's like pretty linear, and I think you always just go right in the current state of that dungeon. I don't think anyone's ever gonna go left.
What's
Unless
up
they
with
change
Blinding
things.
Veil? Is everybody going left? I've only ever played left routes in
Uh,
there.
the it definitely was better in like 17s and 18s to do left, and then they nerfed left side. But I went and did like a 20 with like Yoda the other day, and we were going left and we were struggling. It's like the left mobs are like they like overlap, kind of. There's like a lot of overlaps on the left. So
Okay.
on lower keys, the left seems chill, but then when you get higher, it kind of seems hard. So I don't know what it's actually going to end up being between left and right.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that's where I was a little off base on my analysis or thoughts on the dungeon is not having that appreciation for there's a difference between needing routes and like having minefield mobs or whatever and there being nuance to how you play the dungeon. And I think that you're 100% right in that a lot of the dungeons do have a lot of nuance and ways that you can learn and be better. And the idea about needing routes or sort of like really, really dangerous mobs is it does sort
The
of
raid
create
test.
that, like, that homework or barrier to entering tank or certain classes or whatever, where you can just kind of go into these dungeons and just YOLO it or whatever as a tank. And are you doing the best route? No, like absolutely not. But at the same time, you're not completely griefing your group by sort of just like blind progging as a tank. And I do kind of understand the comments more in the consensus and the idea that maybe it is better for the game to lean more, because even like you said, even a dungeon like King's Rest, where it's literally every single mob needs to be pulled, there is still a lot of nuance in the way that you pull it, and you will feel the difference between when you play with Yoda and when you play with random civilian tank 27 from LFG.
To me, I think it's just one of those things that it's so many of the dungeons that are linear this season that it feels a little bit jarring. It's not like we never have linear dungeons. It's like how many of them there are, and then how confined to like a couple of specific routes or specific trash setups you're confined to is a bit, I would say, higher than normal.
Yeah. Overall, I think the dungeon pool is fine. I think it isn't a matter of be up in arms this this is the worst season ever, I should play. But it also isn't really my favorite. It's kind of like like you mentioned at the very beginning of the conversation, nothing really about this dungeon pool has given me that hype where I'm like, "Oh, this is going to be fun," or "This is really cool." It's kind of just little status quo for me.
And I'm as happy with the donor pool as ever. I think. I mean, season 1 Midnight was like. Do you guys think that was like one of the best dungeon pools?
I think that's like if that's not the best dungeon pool ever, it's certainly one of the top couple. I think that one was really good.
Ooh, I actually didn't. I'm not saying it's bad, but I kind of felt like it wasn't my super favorite, and I kind of felt like, I don't know, maybe it's just a function of playing DPS more instead of healing. But for me, the dungeons have seemed like they've gotten less texture. Where I notice, like someone asked me, I've been playing a decent amount of PTR, and someone asked me what my favorite dungeon was, and I'm just like, I don't know if I really have like favorite dungeons anymore. Like nothing. It just feels like, not to say this is sort of bad or like the wrong thing or whatever, or me complaining. It's just an observation that I noticed where I don't know. It's like nothing has really really spoken to me in the dungeon pool over the last couple expansions. But I will say I think I liked both of the dungeon rotations in War Within. Season 1 was not necessarily my favorite. That was like City of Threads and stuff. Dawnbreaker's first iteration. But I think seasons 2 and 3 I liked a lot.
I don't know. Like I think like War Within had some pretty bad dungeon pools, and I
Ooh.
think mostly concentrated in like the worst dungeons of the sets. Like you
Yeah.
had Grimbatol. I like the Grimbatol City of Threads season. That it was pretty bad. Like those dungeons I don't think were good. Um, and then season 2 and 3, you had the whole Priori and Floodgate thing. And Floodgate was like Floodgate wasn't a bad dungeon, it was just hard. So I think that's kind of just like a thing that ended up getting skewed by being hard. If Floodgate was easier, maybe more people would like it. And a lot of people did like Floodgate. But then Priori was just like really. I feel like it was like the whole
It was too
embodiment of
hard.
what was bad with like the whole War Within stops.
Rookery was also terrible, and in that season.
Uh,
Rookie
and
was season 2, right?
Yeah.
there were 2 seasons of Priori and Floodgate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me,
That was
I
also
guess
bad.
it was the fatigue of the dungeons being so hard. I think Priory, I actually liked so much about it, other than the fact that it was just a little bit too everything, right? Like there's a little bit too many casters, there's a little bit too oppressive, like it was a little bit too hard, but the flavor of the dungeon and also the layout and like the different things in it, I liked a lot. I'm not trying to say I like Priory or was one of my favorite dungeons, but I don't know, I think I really liked seasons 2 or 3 of the rotation, and the biggest complaint I had was that it was just a bit much and a bit hard. But to me, at least, I like felt something about those dungeons, where I feel like this season and the upcoming seasons are just kind of like the dungeons are a bit more samey. But again, maybe this is, that goes to a statement that there are no really big stinkers or really big problematic dungeons. Like it works on both ends, right? If you were to ask me what is my least favorite dungeon of Midnight Season 1, it's kind of like, no, there's no dungeon that I really hate or I'm like, oh no, it's this dungeon, right? Every single key that my team wants to do, I'm like, all right, that sounds fine. We can do that. There's no like groaning when we have 4 of a key or 3 of a key, which is a good thing as well.
Yeah, I wonder if that's going to stay. Because right now, I think, and in the season 2 pool, right now, Temple seems quite a bit harder than other keys. Den of Narlac seems like every group always has a wipe somewhere.
That dungeon's just hard.
Yeah, I think King's Rest nobody ever wants to do. I think this week I've done the dungeon once. Every group I'm in, they never suggest it. That's honestly, I'm honestly kind of concerned about that because if no one wants to do the Q on PTR, no one's
Yeah.
gonna want to do it on live.
Well, I mean, yeah. What's your favorite dungeon and least favorite dungeon right now, Zorthas?
I like. I mean, I like Den of Narlac because it's kind of interesting and something different happens every time. But that's maybe just like the learning thing.
That's what I said last week, and Growl groaned at me.
Yeah, I think that is not my favorite dungeon. I
I
don't hate it though. I mean, I agree with your reasoning. I think that it is certainly an interesting dungeon where shit happens. Like, yeah, I agree.
I'd say my favorite dungeon in terms of actually playing it though is probably the new one, the Altar of Fangs. I think the pulls are like pretty nice cadence and things happen at a good rate. And then I think the worst dungeons like Temple is kind of just I don't know, you kind of just die at some point. Like you just have like a lot of deals and you kind of just die at some point.
You just die. You just walk in. Eventually, when you go into a temple, you know that you will deplete the key. It's just a matter of when.
I mean, the archer mobs that do the barrage at the very beginning with the guys doing the slam, I feel like that wipes a lot of groups. There's a pull that's in the Marektha room that I feel like wipes a lot of groups as well.
Yeah, and you could get stuck in the fountain.
That was so cringe.
Oh, one thing that we talked about on the last episode that they've changed is it felt like they've added a lot more oomph to a lot of these bosses. Like initially when they came out, some of the King's Rest bosses, some of the Temple bosses, some of the new bosses, they were kind of like not really doing anything. I think especially when the Altar of Fangs or whatever, the bosses were pretty lame. And they've recently added a lot of mechanics. I kind of feel like I like the direction they've gone, and a lot of the bosses feel good. When you mention Altar of Fangs, to me, that's a dungeon that feels good now with the bosses. Like, what do you think overall about like the boss design and the level of mechanics or whatever?
Altar of Fangs second boss, I think that needs more cooking. I think they made it worse. Like the 35-second dot, that's kind of hard to heal, but I mean that's just a healer thing, so maybe it's fine. The vine mechanic going from needing 4 to 5 players.
Yeah.
If one guy doesn't know what's going on, you just wipe. It's kind of dumb. Like the thing where you like you're in the middle with the vines and you have to run out. Everyone has to run out with the vines and snap the vines, and you have like a few seconds to do it, and if someone doesn't do it, then the dot becomes unmanageable and you all die. And it used to be 4 players, but you had to press an extra action button, and the extra action button was really weird. I'm glad they removed that. I believe priests cannot do the second boss of that dungeon without help. I think if you have a priest in the dungeon, they just like slowly walk out with the vine and they can't get it out in time. And maybe if they like really pre-move really well, they can. I had a tank leave my group because I was playing a priest.
That was something that we ran into too, where you essentially need to like omega respect that mechanic and like just like you said, pre-move and just run right away. And that's something where I feel like if there's one thing that WoW players are good at, it's not respecting mechanics and trying to greed as much as possible. And it's like you don't get stunned or anything. So in like 99% of the time, you're like gonna cast a spell. And even if you just cast, like at least what it looked like to me is if you cast anything other than immediately feather and hold W from frame 1, you get killed by the vines. And it's like I feel like that's gonna get a lot of people if they keep it in that way where you need to have all 5 people break, and it'll be annoying when one person either, because another thing that the boss does is really funny is it charges right before it does that, right? So it kind of charges across the room and like baits you to use your movement ability, and then all of a sudden you use it, and then oh, now you don't have your movement ability to break the tether or whatever.
Yeah,
and I
if
think
you-
that's a definitely a gotcha boss.
If you gust out of the frontal, it will be on a 4-second cooldown when the vine thing starts.
Yep.
It's happened numerous times. Yeah, there were a lot of bosses they had in the previous weeks that were they were target dummies. The Machimba did nothing. He was straight up just a single
That
target.
dog does nothing too in Alter.
The dog, it does a lot of damage.
Yeah,
It's a
they've
healing
buffed
boss.
like all the bosses now.
Yeah.
I actually really like the 35-second dot. I felt as a healer that was a really unique fight of it's Omega Rot, but then it's not, right? Like you do have those breaks. I feel like most bosses are either like very, very bursty as a healer, where it's just like all the damage is in like 5 seconds, or it's permanent rot in the whole fight. And the idea of like a damage that was really hard to heal that lasted so long that one healing CD or even sometimes two was not enough. But then you also had those moments of reprieve of, oh, it's the intermission, there's 0 damage going out, was a really interesting spin on, I don't know. It's just weird, but in general, I've had a lot of fun healing on PTR, and I think that they've cooked a little bit in the design of mechanics and also sort of the balance of things not feeling super oppressive, although it could just be a matter of key too low.
All right. What about the last boss of Temple? Do you guys know?
Okay,
what
it's
the
better.
boss was?
Okay, it's better than it was, but it's bad. It's still really bad. Like, I don't know how they were supposed to make it better. Okay, so I think that this is the problem with like revamping old dungeons occasionally, is that what that boss is supposed to be is like some trash rush. That fight just fucking sucks. It feels like you're killing a bona fide trash bag.
Dude, I feel like it's close. I kind of like what they were cooking with it. I don't remember if you were here for this point, but I was running the new like Mastery Mistweaver thing or whatever that you and a lot of other people have been running. And basically the TLDR is you really need to be hitting a mob as a Mistweaver or you do fucking nothing. And the way that the last boss felt, it was really weird, where it was like there are mobs fixating you, and if they hit you, you can't heal, but so you can't hit them. But there are also mobs that you can hit, and I'm like having my tank like drag those mobs away so that I can hit those while running away from the fixates. Like it was close. I think it made me feel something, and it was close to interesting, but the execution of all the other mechanics, like there's one mechanic where it targets you with a debuff thing, right? And it's like, oh, you're gonna drop a circle so you get out of the group or whatever, but it does a bunch of damage to you, and then it puts a puddle that hexes you, and so you're, as a healer, if you don't press a defensive, then you get hexed and you can't heal yourself.
The only saving grace is that fight is not that hard. I think that, in my opinion, goes down as one of the worst bosses I've ever seen. Like, it is so
that's
fucking
close.
bad.
I want to give it credit. Because I feel like it's,
bro, that's
it's
like Vic Goth. That guy's down there with Vic Goth, I think, in terms of like dog shit bosses for me.
I mean, the thing about that boss, the healer doesn't really matter. I don't know if you guys realize this, but the healer like is actually like kind of irrelevant on healing the boss.
It's just the orbs.
Yeah, the ads, you kill ads and they drop orbs and they heal the boss. And the ads in the intermission that fixate, you kill them and they heal the boss. The healer ends up only contributing approximately like 10% of the boss's health. And I think because of the way the boss is structured, that can save you like 20 seconds, maybe max, if you're like pumping it really hard. I think if you don't, I haven't tested if you don't heal at all, but I think if you don't heal at all, you get a third phase in which you kill the corrupted guardian, you soak the orb, and that heals the boss to full without any help from the healer. I'm pretty sure it works like that. So the healer is actually like kind of not relevant, but people are confused because they think the healer is relevant because it's a boss where you heal something. It's kind of not anymore. It's just, the boss is actually really simple. You just kind of kill the ads.
Yeah, you literally just kill the ads.
It's on timer. You kill the ads.
Yeah, I'm out on that boss, but it's more. It literally feels like I'm fighting the King's Rest Trash Gauntlet as a boss.
Yeah, I think The other part of or rather the other iteration of the boss was also a problem where everyone's just sitting there doing nothing and it's only the healer just spamming heals or whatever. Yeah, it feels good to like press Vivify as a brewmaster or whatever, but ultimately it doesn't really,
Dude, they got to
you
bring back the
know.
frogs. They have to bring back the frogs.
And then I don't know, then they just sort of changed it in a way that I, it probably won't go live as anything good and it'll probably be a mess, but I kind of see what they were going with, and there's some combination or way these mechanics work where it's good. It just is not the current one.
I mean, playing healer on that boss, I do like trying to optimize my single target heal in like a 30-second period or however long it is. I think that's actually
Mhm.
kind of cool. Although there's a bit of a disparity. I think my H pal, I do like triple the healing of Asham on that guy.
Yeah.
Raid talk?
Raid talk. I feel like the raid's been fun. I normally don't like raid testing, but I don't know. Raid testing's been fun. I kind of like all the bosses. They're interesting, I guess.
I feel like this heroic testing was better than any other heroic raid testing I've ever done, and then this mythic testing was, I think it was pretty expected. I feel like the bosses on mythic, there was like some bosses that were ridiculously hard, some that were pretty easy. I will say I did notice that there was a lot of AOE in a way that is a little bit surprising. I feel like they've hit the raid formula for a while with like fairly solid raids just as a whole, and I feel like this is more kind of what I've come to expect with Blizzard in terms of raid bosses.
Do you actually think there was a lot of? Do you mean AOE or just like bosses that are multiple bosses and spread?
Uh,
'Cause,
more about the spread cleaved and like the actual like AOE, right?
yeah, like I actually think this is a raid that doesn't have much AOE. I feel there's no. The first boss is like mass ads, and
Yeah.
after that, no other bosses like really mass ads.
The
Um,
Zek Vec whatever was this third
V-
guy?
V-
Vashnik?
Vashnik the Malignant. He has some mass ads, but they're I don't know. It's kind of just like one spawn,
Yeah.
like like every like what, like 3 minutes, there's two spawns of these mass ads, and then the rest of them is like a group of three ads and like one ad that splits into two and splits into four. So I don't think there's any like I don't know, there's no like Veil Gore and Ezrak happening. There's no I mean there's no like massive wave of Salhadar orbs, no like voracious like wave of like the bugs,
Sure.
nothing, no aversion. So I feel like it's actually not a real. It's not an AOE raid. But there are a lot of bosses that are multiple bosses.
Hmm. That that's kind of what I meant was like there's a decent amount of two target, three target spread cleave, not like the conventional AOE. That I think that that's probably a more fair assessment.
Four of the bosses are multiple different bosses.
Yeah.
Four out of eight, or I guess 4 out of 9.
I kind of feel like it's a little baity. I don't know if you guys feel this way that yeah, there's a lot of multiple bosses and there's like AoE, but I think it's really front loaded into some of the easier bosses, if that makes sense. Where like for the most part, the really important things that matter are just the last two or three bosses usually, and those I don't think there's
Yeah.
really. I mean, we don't know what the last boss is going to be, obviously, but I think that there's a lot of like really good spread cleave or whatever, but it may not be the case that that's really important, right? Like, yeah, if your class is blasting on Veilgore and Ezrak, yeah, I guess it feels good, but ultimately, like, I don't think it changes that much about the raid. I think it is reasonably balanced across things, other than what you mentioned of like, there's kind of a few bosses where it's kind of looking like, dang, Shadow Priest and Boomkin are really good.
And it's the same thing as like the other, like the last like four raids, is that Shadow Priest and Boomy looked good on the PTR. The bunch of early bosses were like spread, but then the later bosses of every raid was like pretty much not too relevant for spread cleave. And
Yeah.
then also Boomy would get like nerfed or something, or Boomy like you don't actually care about the spread cleave. You don't care about like ads or anything, and you
Mass
just want
grip.
boss damage. And Boomy is well, yeah. There's also that you just grip the ads in, but Boomy is also like starfalling, and you're not doing boss damage, and
Yeah.
you don't actually care about killing the ads that fast.
Grip's not a raid buff this tier, from what I've seen, right? Is the last boss got something that sounds grippable?
The last boss has like infinite different types of ads, so
Okay, maybe.
decent chance that there's a grip there. But out of all of these bosses, the grips, I think they're useful on the lair boss, which is probably so easy that it's irrelevant.
The layer boss. Okay.
There's the Vashnik boss. It's kind of nice, but I don't think it's going to be required at all. Um, I mean, the first boss is just crazy. You need a lot more than one grip on the first boss at the moment. So
Yeah, the first boss is funny. It has a mechanic that I would say belongs perhaps in Molten Core, where for some reason there are ads and they have a shield on them and only take damage to that shield from magic damage sources. Like what in the 2007 is that shit?
yeah, it gets worse if it's a split. If it's like a joint damage type, like Storm Strike damage. Fury Warriors do Storm Strike damage in their Thunderclap, which is like magic and physical. It counts as physical and doesn't go in the shield.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, Warriors are legit to do healer damage to that shield. I think no matter what they spec. The only thing that hits it is like some tying proc in the hero tree.
I think that was like it has something to do with like what their intended gameplay of the bosses of like what we were doing is we were like sending all of the melee or all of the physical damage like down in the down phase or whatever to do that because they weren't like killing the ads or like I think I'm not sure exactly what their intention was on that or why they had that plan, but it does kind of seem like they intended melee to have or physical classes to have a specific job and not just be like omega ad padding or whatever. But it does feel like you said, I don't know about Molten Core, but it definitely the mechanic feels a little bit out of place.
It's a weird thing to have on a first boss to have it be comp restrictive. And
Yep.
we also saw this on a version in testing. The dispels was 10 dispels and you needed 5 to break a shield.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was the first boss of this raid. Yeah.
That's
Yeah, right now it's like
ridiculous.
6. Right now it's 6 dispels and you need 2 to break a shield. And because healers can only really dispel 1%, or it only really makes sense for healers to dispel 1%. You kind of would have wanted 5 healers on the first boss in a version, and then they changed that. And now I think this new first boss is coming out, and you have these like weird like going downstairs phases. You have these ads that only take damage from certain damage types. It seems like it's going to be a bit too restrictive. I would not be surprised if they change something. Also, I think the going downstairs in the phase is weird. It's like the Kel'Thuzad phylactery, right? And that's like a second last boss, and then they put that mechanic on a first boss. I feel like it's very rare for a first boss to have like phase assignments like that. Right?
When was the last time a first boss had phases like that?
Like there are a lot of first bosses that had soak assignments, like Plexus, etc. You could have like a group 1 and group 2 in the soak, but like going to different phases and different platforms, I feel like is kind of weird. Not really normal.
What are your thoughts on the overall visual and telegraphing of the raid? I think they mentioned that they've wanted to change some things or streamline some things. Did you find that things were visually understandable? Do you think that they were too cluttered, average? Any thoughts on that? Because now it's green on green on green instead of purple on purple on purple.
Well, I like that it's a raid that's not purple. uh, I think everything's been pretty reasonably easy to see. Like, I mean, they have the new swirlies and then now the new cones, so you can see when you're in a swirly or not. Some of the bosses maybe are a bit weird. That Twin Fangs boss with like the red was kind of hard to see. I think the green's easy to see, but the red's hard to see.
I think the ghosts on the penultimate fight were hard to see for me, or to tell when I was like targeted by one of them.
It's like kind of massive and like glowing red. I think it was pretty. I don't think it was that hard to see in my eyes.
I think there was just a lot of stuff going on because there was what you could get targeted by the ghosts and you could get targeted by the circle or whatever where you had to break the ghosts or whatever, and it was just like But I mean, it was a penultimate boss, right? So it makes sense that there's a lot of stuff going on or things to think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was definitely a boss where I had to like stop and like figure everything out or whatever. Like I kind of went into that blind progging just because it's whatever, it's PTR, and I was like, whoa, okay, there's it's the equivalent of going into like Saladar and whatever the not this raid but the last raid blind is just like you would have no idea what the fuck is going on.
They also are making improvements. The first time they tested Vashnik, the poison wave thing, it looked a lot worse, and then they changed it to like the plus type symbol thing, and it's now way better. So that they are also making improvements from what we initially saw.
I mean, Vashnik also had like the worst nameplate clutter I've ever seen from the malignant
Yeah.
growths. Like I don't know what the fuck that was going on there.
It also had the worst raid flame clutter. There was a magic debuff that was a 5% slow and went on the entire raid. I healed for a pull and I was dispelling people, like off CD, and then I looked at what I was dispelling. I'm dispelling a 5% slow. It doesn't even do damage.
That's really good.
Slow. They removed
That's
it. It's
good.
been removed.
Yeah. Also, I think on PTR it might be my add-on setup or whatever, but I feel like it's showing random stuff like sated or whatever now on my frames all the time, and I hope that gets fixed. But it has made all of the debuff clutter a lot worse. Like sometimes I'm healing dungeons and the people will literally be because I think I have 3 dispels showed on frames normally, and it's like people are at debuff cap and I won't even know what is on them because there's just like random shit showing on my frames. But I mean, for the most part, the add-on stuff has been like fine on PTR though. It hasn't been like hopefully that shit gets fixed at least.
Yeah, something that was actually kind of new to this tier though is that world bosses are now giving myth track loot, and I think that that's actually something that's kind of I didn't really understand what they were going for whenever they were originally talking about instance world bosses. Everybody thought it was going to be trying to curb like world lag or something like that. But now it seems like that's what's the evolution of the Sporefall boss. Zorthas, what do you think about that boss? Because I actually wasn't even able to do testing of that guy yet.
Okay, so the whole thing where it's a world boss is complete bait, and no one should really ever be considering this as a world boss.
Okay,
It's a boss. It is a single boss raid. It is an evolution of world boss, but it is in no way is it a world boss. It is a normal single boss raid. It has normal heroic mythic difficulties. It has a world difficulty that is essentially equivalent to LFR. The loot is standard. It's group loot. So it's just like a normal one boss raid. You have a normal one boss mythic difficulty drops mythic loot.
he may as well be
Just like-
Chimeras.
Yeah, it's Chimeras. It's the pretty much the exact same thing. It's flex mythic though. So they are using flex mythic for this, and they make it sound like they're gonna keep doing it. Like every tier, maybe we just get this one boss raid that's flex mythic, and I mean I think that's pretty good. You just have like one extra boss that's like outside of the normal raid lockout, so it gives people more flexibility, more also easier entry. More accessibility to mythic loot from mythic raid, like the 6 out of 6 thing as well. I think it's also 1 out of 6 compared to 2 out of 6 from Chimeras, so it's probably going to be easier than Chimeras, or it's pronounced Chimeras or something. It's just a mythic boss. It also is kind of a cool concept because every tier they make a world boss, right? And they always have a dungeon journal and they always have mechanics on that world boss. But how many world bosses do you actually like remember any mechanics of?
0. I mean, I think that
Yeah.
this makes more sense as well because I think that this being like the Sporefall raid or the Chimeras or whatever in terms of difficulty, while it is a little bit lower, I think that the Flex Mythic, the option of being able to get some loot, I think that there's a reasonable expectation for some players that there should be bosses for them, and I think that makes sense. I think it's a cool idea as well from Blizzard.
Yeah, I think why they're calling it World Boss is specifically so that, like, the idea of one boss raid, like, as a WoW player, you for World Boss, you think, okay, this is a loot pinata, I do this if it has good stuff. As a one boss raid, it feels like, oh, I need a guild for this or whatever, right? And I think the idea is that it's essentially a one boss raid, but the idea is that hopefully that people are pugging it, and it's not really the difficulty, even on Mythic, is not intended to be, oh, you need a 20-man roster and to be super serious with it. And so for a WoW player that wants it in WoW language, it's a one boss raid, but also it's something that is likely, it's almost identical to what Chimeras is this season of. It's a one boss raid, but it's something that even with, if you're a player who wants a challenge and you're not in a guild, this is still something that you can attain and may be good for you to do. And I think that it's a great point that they've been making world bosses for gosh knows how long, and it really does feel like pretty obsolete content, right? Where it's either it has a good reward that you just do, and then you go into LFG and you just hit it once in AFK or whatever, and then it just falls over and has no mechanics, or it's like you don't even do it at all. And now it's like, I think, a more modernized take on what a world boss is.
I get to split him. Like you said, he's group loot, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could do mythic splits on the lair boss. Yes.
Is that worth?
It's probably going to be easy, so it's probably worth, and of course worth is depending on how much your guild raids and whatever. There are reasons why you wouldn't necessarily need to split it. I think a lot of the benefits we gained from splitting Chimeras was you could only take 20 people on Chimeras. So we're like 4 or 5 people that are on your bench. They're not killing that boss. They're not contributing to the loot or whatever. They're not getting vault from it. So you could do a second split with those people and get them loot. You can go in with 25 man to the lair. So you theoretically everyone is then getting their vault, and also you're getting that one extra piece of loot anyways, without having to bring like ults in, etc. So there are there are if you're like a high end guild, I think you just split it just because it's like you'll probably just go and one shot it on your second split and get some free loot. But if you're not, it's kind of meh. The loot is also kind of mid. It's got the most verse loot. Okay, out of the whole raid, there are, I don't know I don't remember the exact number, but I think there's like 11 items that have verse on them at all. Out of
That
like
is so few. What in the world?
out of like 70 or 80. Not a single one has heavy verse. They all have small verse. And I believe 6 of them are from the lair. They're all small verse items from the lair. There's like a haste verse ring, big haste, small verse, bunch of like braces and belts, etc. with small verse.
You can't catalyze those stats off either anymore.
No, I believe that even on belts, etc., the catalyst retains stats, I believe, unless it's what was I saw was unintended. So it's not really a high value boss. I mean, Chimeras was a pretty low value boss outside of Gaze as well.
Chimeras was real hit or miss where, it's like if your guild was good enough to do those, then it was beneficial, but also it was like, it was only beneficial based off of how many gazes you got, right? Like if you killed the boss and got 0 gazes, like the loot was more or less.
I think the vault could be pretty valuable.
You're guaranteed 1 chest off of Chimeras, which was actually pretty good. In the lair, the lair boss does not drop tier, so you are not guaranteed anything. You can get like 4 braces.
Oh my god, yes.
It'd be interested in their loot philosophy of exactly, because they have some sort of rhyme or reason behind these things. It's interesting to kind of see changes like that and to kind of wonder what their goals are or whatever. Like I wonder if their ideas, like even PvPers might want to do this boss, and that's why like they see verse as like a stat that isn't really good or appealing to people, and so they don't put it on a lot of gear. But then it is kind of a thing in PvP, so that they put it on that bot. Like I don't really know, but I do think I'm always interested to hear their thought process behind stuff and what their rhyme or reason is for the way that they move loot around, because it's nice to kind of know their intentions as well, to see are they accomplishing what they want.
I don't think it's PvP related because they get like max
Oh
loot
shit.
anyways. Also, it sounded like they were kind of from that Q&A, they didn't really want to do much for PvP. It sounded like.
Yeah,
PvPers.
You guys hear that?
PvPers were not happy. I feel like I feel like they've been kind of going that way for a while, where they haven't even been addressing Arena, and now they say like 5 words in that Ian Hazakosis interview with Cyber, and then they talk about it in that Discord interview, and they basically just say that nothing's going on with PvP.
An
They
interesting
said, like,
phenomenon with PvP. Sorry, go ahead.
They said they like it was hard for them to like justify things because the player base was small, something like that.
Yeah, which I mean
paraphrased.
that's why Pet Battles got sunset, right? Like, it's hard for them to want to put dev time into a game mode that doesn't have a large active player base.
I was just gonna say, I find it interesting too that PvP almost has the same effect that WoW does in terms of the expansions, where you would think that most of the PvPers would be concentrated on retail and playing retail, but you actually see a large amount of people switching between playing TBC Classic, playing MoP Classic, like doing those arenas, which I think makes it only even more difficult for them, right? And then you have the same problem with the PvP player base being fractured between LFG and solo queue, and I think that if there was sort of like a united front where all the WoW players agreed with PvP, you might see more love and care there. But I do think it's like hard when they they don't similar to retail, right, where they have PvPers have the same problem where everybody kind of wants different things or has a different ideal of what it is, and I think that they just don't have the they can't justify the dev time putting a lot of effort in PvP of like any of the games, and I don't know, it just sucks.
It's also a little bit of chicken or the egg. Like, what came first? Did the small PvP player base come first, or did Blizzard neglecting the game mode come first? And then what ended up, is the reason that the game mode doesn't have that many active players because Blizzard neglected it for so long, or is it because the player base was always small on Arena?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, like, it's easy to say that now, but
well, yeah, I mean,
at
the player
one
base
point,
is small now,
yeah.
but was it always like this? Like, did the stuff?
Yeah, I think that I talk about gearing a lot, and the idea of gearing and the whole RPG thing, and I think that it's similar in PvP. I think where the whole, oh, we want gear separated, we don't like us PvPers, we want our own thing. Ultimately, I think that actually appeals to a lot smaller of a player base than you might think, because a lot of WoW PvP is like, yeah, I like PvP, but also I still want my RPG elements, right? But ultimately, people who want a very serious, very competitive multiplayer experience are not playing World of Warcraft, right? They're playing League of Legends, or they're playing chess, or they're playing whatever, right? And I think that PvP with no gear or no interaction to the RPG elements at all kind of doesn't it might sound like that's what you want, but once you get split off, then it's like now you're kind of drifting in no man's land. And I kind of wonder if I kind of feel like the PvE in WoW is sort of going in that direction as well, but is not nearly as far along or struggling as PvPers are.
The separated gear is like one of my reasons I don't really interact with PvP anymore. I know it's easy to farm PvP gear, but it's kind of, I mean, I don't know. I feel like if you have a complete character in PvE, having to start again with PvP gear, it's just a barrier, and I just don't really feel like I ever want to queue up an arena.
They make PvP so fucking hard to play too, with things like honor talents and all that shit as well. I think that I PvP'd a lot during BFA and Shadowlands. The barrier to entry for arena is like you need hundreds of arenas to understand how your character interacts with every other character, and then also how it interacts with the new hero talents that you're getting. It is actually really annoying, on top of needing the new gear set and everything too. Like, they really do not make it easy to want to jump into PvP.
There's also a lot of different modifiers. Every spell is like some weird
Yeah.
modifier.
I think that BGs probably should have been the flag. Obviously, this is easy to look at in hindsight, but I think that should have been like the the flagship way of playing PvP as opposed to arena.
I don't know. I think arena is fine, but I don't know. I feel like it's kind of it kind of drifted into its own game. I think it's its
Yeah.
own game, and
Yeah.
I don't really care about all the PvP gear or however it's changed, because I mean ultimately I'm not actually a PvPer. I'm just a guy who like was PvPing on the side, so I don't really think my opinions should be how they make it. But I mean that's just kind of how it affects me. Like I don't really PvP just because I think it's very distant now, whereas I would have done it in the past.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
I think your opinions are like very relevant because I ideally like I think we're in similar boats where, at least for me, I played WoW to PvP initially. That was my goal. I saw Sea-Doo and I'm like, I want to do that, and I made an Arsham. That was my first character. But I was like, okay, the barrier to entry of this is like way too crazy. There's way too much shit to learn. Let me just try this PvE stuff, right? But it's like nowadays, I feel like I could probably jump into PvP now and kind of at least have an idea of what goes on, right? Because I understand all the classes. But it's like, yeah, I need to know all these modifiers and how all these spells change. I need to get this gear, and it's like, ultimately if they made it so someone like me or you can just say queue up and not feel at a massive disadvantage, like we're not talking, oh, we're down 5% or whatever the PvPers, like our gear is like basically useless because it's not PvP gear, right? And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it is not that any of us are PvP experts or whatever, but to say that, oh, all these changes are good and this is what PvPers want, when ultimately, like, yeah, you're kind of distancing people like us from even trying it.
I mean, I think it's hard to play
everything is
PvP
like this.
casually. I think that's one of the bigger problems that I have with PvP is like, what does it mean to play? You know what it's like to do Mythic Plus casually. You know what it's like to raid casually. PvPing casually, you're just getting your shit beat down by some 1200 rating rogue. Like, is that really what you want?
Yeah, it's like playing StarCraft casually nowadays, where it's like, all the game is just infested with people who are very, very good and know everything. And I feel like even StarCraft has gone in a direction where it's better for that, whereas WoW is like, even much worse of an effect, and people just gravitate towards the PvE.
Now, if you wanted to incorporate that into another debate, you would then talk about how the suggestion of M plus specific gearing would
Yes, that
relate
was
to that.
I think we're
exactly.
all. Are we
Yes.
all out? Like, I think we're all out on that.
That was exactly where I was going, was when you were talking about your relationship with PvP of like, this is a precautionary tale, and that's kind of why I'm saying what I'm saying is like, look at PvP and look what happened to PvP when ultimately they did. And again, I could be just, all the PvPers might be like, this guy's a complete moron, he has no idea what he's talking about, but ultimately, like, they were placating toward this community demand to be separated, and then look what happened, it died, right? And I think that unfortunately a lot of WoW is all of the elements tied into one. Is you have an RPG, but it's also you're doing all this stuff, right? And like, I'm not saying look at Fellowship as in Fellowship is a failure, but I mean, Fellowship is a perfect example of they do so many things right about Mythic Plus, but it's just sort of proof that M Plus in and of itself, for the sake of itself, is not like, it's very hard to make standalone M plus OI login viable, right? And while to some people it might feel like, okay, all I do is M plus, this is all I care about, the entire ecosystem would break down if, oh, the only reason to do M plus is because you like pushing keys.
And you don't even have to like be on a side of the debate here. Like you just like put this into Blizzard perspective, and if they ever like open the Pandora box of separating the game modes, then it's kind of over, right?
Yeah.
So they have to be like very cautionary on things like that.
I think that for me, like Mythic Plus just needs like a better way of getting higher eye level loot aside from the Great Vault, and then just the BS where it has infinitely spammable hero track gear. If that could get solved in a way that makes the entire gearing process feel good, right? Like this isn't just an issue of raid or Mythic Plus. It's like an issue of like there's no vertical way that Mythic Clusters can like get gear. Like I think if Blizzard was really able to tackle that in a way that felt good, that's the best case scenario. Like that's the only thing that they need to be able to. They have to be able to figure it out because I don't think it's an easy task because otherwise they would have done it. But I think that would be a much better solution than be like, oh yes, we're separating the game modes, because I think that is also just terrible.
I agree.
Okay. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, I have tons actually. If you guys need to go, that's fine. But the next thing I wanted to talk about. I feel like this is more for the people or whatever. Is you don't have to go into depth, but I think that you have been somebody who number one is super good, and number two has played a bunch of PTR. And I think that people are going to want to hear your thoughts overall on the classes. Maybe people who are kind of deciding what they're thinking about playing. If are there any standouts or any like really exceptional classes right now in the PTR? Obviously, things are going to change, but any sort of like meta predictions or things that are really stand out or things that people should know about going into the season.
Meta predictions. Yeah, I've answered this about 50 times every day.
Yep, people want to know.
I mean, like right now, Protection Paladin looks like the only tank, and they are reworking it like every week. They change the talents every week, so they're putting a lot of dev time into it. And usually, when they put dev time into something, it's going to be good. So, I guess I'd hinge on that. Like a lot of people talk about the 5 DK seasons in a row, and people think that it got nerfed. It's like dead or something. I don't think that's the case. They never actually changed any of the underlying things about DK, and it's entirely possible if it's actually bad, it will get buffed and then be good again, and then be played again. I think the most interesting thing is what class is going to provide Lust, because there's a lot of Lust specs that are good. Right now, a lot of people playing Arcane Mage, and I think damage-wise, Arcane Mage is like the strongest. It's doing like a lot of funnel, but we thought Arcane Mage was good in beta, right?
Yeah.
And it's like the most trash spec. No one is actually playing it, and it barely even got changed.
I mean, looking at logs, it looks like Ellie and Marks are also doing similar damage to Arcane Mage in some. It just
Yeah,
looks like it's dungeon dependent.
So I think Marks is like the highest overall. It does the kind of low prio. And then Ellie is also doing pretty good overall. Does low prio. People talk about raid buffs, but it's not always that that like you don't always bring Sky Fury if you have like a strong melee. Like it happened in War Within. You played DK in a season without Sky Fury, and it was a massive gain. The Hunter's Marks is you still have to press it 5 times when you go into a patch.
That's good. That's good.
It's kind of crazy. But yeah, I think that's like the interesting contention because your Lust classes are like 3 squishy-ish classes. Well, they're not 3 classes that aren't tanky, and you got to choose one of them. At the moment, I mean, maybe another. I mean, also there's not really any other Lust classes. They're just same specs of the same class. Evoker is dead.
Oof.
Or
That's
I wonder if they're gonna.
shot.
I wonder if they're gonna do anything into it because it's like dead. It's not like even joking. It's just dead. Like
I mean, they literally just removed your ability to be able to get out multiple duplicates and didn't do anything else. Like, well, yeah, that spec is fucking gone.
My kind of impression, if I had to say one thing about the PTR that's hard right now, I don't know if you feel this way, is I feel like with tanks and healers, Prop Paladin and Mistweaver are so good, and they're also such standouts where, yeah, they're going to be meta if they make it the way that, if they make it to live like this, but I don't think neither of them make it to live like this, right? And so I think it's really, really hard to tell what's going to be good when the most it's not like, oh, these classes are a little bit better and this will probably make it to live. It's like both of these are going to see some tuning, and then we have no idea where the dominoes are going to land after that.
What's the second best healer? Holy Paladin?
Okay, healers are interesting. Okay, so Mistweaver, I'm pretty sure this build is in no way making it to live. Like Protection Paladin could make it to live. Mistweaver, I think, in no way make it to live. It looks stronger than Undermine Mistweaver in raid.
Yep.
I think Mistweaver is like doing tank damage or even maybe beating tank damage in raid while it's seemingly topping healing. With this new mastery build, it looks quite OP. So I think that's getting nerfed. I think Mistweaver, as much as I hyped it up recently, I think it's overhyped. it has downtime in its healing. With this Rising Sun Kick build, you're kind of only healing with Rising Sun Kick. Your Vivify actually does nothing. It like tickles. It does like 5% of someone's health. You like spot heal with like Renewing Mist. It's like really, if you're not kicking, you have nothing. And I think if this spec gets nerfed, you're really going to feel the downtime on it. Additionally, I think a lot of its actual strength is propped up by its damage. You do like 80k single target to a dungeon boss, which is like pretty absurd. And it's like you're doing like 80 to 90k overall, and it's fully prio. You're not spinning anymore. You do no like you're not even padding. You're just doing full prio damage on Mistweaver. So I think there's a few things that are propping Mistweaver up right now that are going to get nerfed, and I think after that happens, I'm pretty much considering it's not going to be too great. And I think that's how it always works with like these like damage to healing healers is that once they go below the like point of being really good, they can't keep up a lot of the time.
Yeah,
I feel
I
like a
think
lot of
like
the time
especially
just
with
can't
Disc
keep up.
and Mistweaver, their raid buffs don't really give you that much damage, right? Like unless you're playing a full Fizz comp, then you have a reason to run Mistweaver. But it's like, they have like a baseline of damage that they're always doing, and unless that baseline is like super OP, then it's like, okay, well, what else is this guy bringing? Like I guess Oracle Disc was like a weird situation, right, where it had these like insane shields, but more or less, I think those are two specs that have a hard time being meta in M plus or fitting into groups unless they're just doing insane output.
I think a bigger point of what he was saying is that the conversion just ends up being super bad to the point where you can't meet the heal checks, right?
Yeah, I think it's like something where you can't really do like you can't squeeze out more. I feel like when Disc is bad, it's like really bad because you kind of just get checked.
Yeah.
I think that things like that happen. I mean, Disc right now, it doesn't look like you're even doing atonement much. It's like you're like shadow mending and void shielding.
Yeah,
A
Disc
lot
is
of
in a weird spot.
in terms of the other healers, it's like Holy Paladin does really good healing, but it will do lower damage. Like the damage contribution is lower, and I actually think healer damage is like understated, at least recently. I think it's not important, but in terms of like determining what's meta, it is kind of important. So as like I like Holy Paladin needs to be like way better at the moment to justify losing like at least 30k DPS. You have like Resto Shaman. Resto Shaman is doing pretty good. Good AoE healing. Good damage. But the Resto Shaman is like, you know how like people always complain about Prez and the positioning for Prez. I think Resto Shaman is like way worse for that now. You have like you're like all your healing is in like Healing Rain. You're like
Oh,
multiple
Because
good
healing
God.
rains.
you play totemic, right? And you just
Well,
need so much.
it's the tier set is proccing healing rains. So all your healing is in
Oh, okay,
healing
yeah.
rains, and then you play a bunch of healing rain talents as well now because they're so good. And then if you have like a mage in your group, you heal the mage, and the healing rain procs on the mage 30 yards out. It's just one single healing rain concentrated on the mage. It's not doing much.
I mean, it's just so hard. Like, even as a deep, okay, like that healer better be the best shit ever if you're gonna go and play around it. It's just so hard to play around stuff like that. I mean, seriously, like having to be consciously aware of your healer's positioning and your positioning for your healer the entire time is so fucking annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I think inherently it's not necessarily a bad thing for these unique things in the game, right? But as a healer, I feel like you tend to want to be like an enabler and the support guy and the guy that's helping other people do things. And so as a healer, having other people needing to play around you just doesn't feel good. And it's like, play like you don't play a healer so that I'm gonna yell and tell everyone what to do. Like people, just like you said, right? Like just the thought of having to play around your healer like made you wince. And it's just like it's just annoying. And I think that I agree with you 100% that for me, Shaman feels worse when a lot of your power is in Healing Rain. I think in raid that can be something that's okay, but in M plus especially, it's like, ugh.
And I mean, I remember I've said this in the past, like previous tiers when I'm like making tier lists and stuff. I'd say like even if Prez is good, you like take it down a tier because who wants to play around the Prez? Who wants to be in a group with the Prez and you have to like stand in a certain spot. However, I actually do think Prez is looking alright, and I don't think it's as positionally requirement anymore.
I think
I
they
think it's
changed a
that
lot
big
of that
Prez.
this expansion, right?
Yeah, like the Dream Breath is bigger, but also the new tier set is like a lot of like spot healing when you like echo. It's pretty. I think Prez is better than normal.
It'd be interesting to see a Prez season. Like I feel like they do a decent amount of damage. Every time I see it, I feel like it's actually not that bad. Um, the only
It would be
season it's been playable is like season 1 of Dragonflight, and since then, every single season it's been, or I don't say every single season, but so many seasons, it's by far the best healer in Raid and not that good in Mythic Plus.
It would be pretty crazy if you went from Mistweaver pressing one button to playing Prez as the meta healer. That'd be pretty crazy.
Healers gonna get exposed.
Anything else, Growl?
Yeah, actually one last small thing I wanted to talk about is I feel like since maybe the start of War with It, I could be misremembering or not understanding, but I feel like your content has been on the up and up. And as someone who also watches your content, I kind of like try to think about exactly what it is. And I think it comes down to you respect the viewer a lot and you sort of just like have the facts and you present them as the way that you see it and you don't really do a lot of the things that content creators and YouTubers do. You just kind of be like, this is something I want to talk about and here are the facts, and you kind of decide. Like obviously you have like, a reason that you're making the video. And I'm kind of wondering, I guess, your thoughts on like general content creation and what sort of niche that you feel like you have and what sort of content you make and maybe want to make or plans that you have for the future with your stuff.
Um, so I don't really watch videos very often. I'm not really someone that actually watches videos. So I feel like I kind of make videos for people who don't actually who aren't like there to watch videos. I don't know, like I'm someone who like will read like text guides, and I'd rather read a guide in like a Google Doc than like watch a video, for example. Um, and I feel like I kind of when I started making videos, I was making like enhancement shaman guides, and I kind of just made my concept of like a Google Doc, and then but I made it a video, and it kind of worked out. And I was making a bunch of videos about like enhancement shaman stuff, and then I ended up diversifying a bit and made some videos on like current things that were happening in WoW. Like it was like that Mystic Touch thing. I remember that.
That was really good. I love the resilient like poll that you did.
Yeah, that video would be pretty relevant now. A lot of people are talking about that kind of thing. Uh, Kind of funny because it didn't perform well relative to other videos at the time. I think it's actually I think the resilient thing is like a very isolated issue. Like not many people actually even interface with the system or even
I
care.
think I think all of the people in like an hour bubble watched that video to see what
Right.
conclusions you came to, but I don't know. I don't think that has widespread appeal.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen like the whole Resil thing is like pretty. A lot of people are talking about it the last few weeks, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's kind of funny because like not many people actually care. Uh,
Um. How is it streaming 365 days in a row? I feel like, dude, I feel like that shit had to be insane.
um, yeah, that was like pretty much from when I started getting big from like Enhanced and Shaman being good, and then I was streaming every day, and then I just didn't stop streaming, and I would just stream every day. It was nice that I'd like wake up and I'd have something. I'd always know that I'm doing something, but I think the biggest issue is it's not like anything like personal related or anything. I think sometimes if I force myself to stream and I have no content, I think it's kind of like could be bad. I just turn my stream on and there's nothing happening, and at like near like the end of the season, I just like pug a key, and I don't even want to pug a key. It kind of wasn't anything. So after that happened, and that was like that ended like almost a year ago. I think it was like September. I think it was like September 24 to 25. I did that, and then I still pretty much do stream every day, but sometimes I just don't. Usually on like Sundays, I have like raid, and then I just don't stream out the raid, and I make a video instead. Um, but I mean, it's kind of good to not just force myself to stream nothing, and that was like maybe negatively impacting.
Yeah, I've been
what I
going
think.
through a lot of that recently. I feel like that's bad, right? Because ideally, you want okay when I see Zorthas is online, I feel a certain way and I get something from the stream, right? But if you force yourself to go live, it's gonna change how I experience your stream. Like it won't be, you're pressing go live to press go live, not because you think you have something good to share. But also, I think it does sort of like at least for me, help me as a creator sort of get better, right? Like when you have to press go live and you have nothing to do, you sort of like, how do I, you find other ways, I guess, to make your content better. But I do, yeah, I do think that just pressing go live or being live all the time or just putting out content just to do it, like it's just a double-edged sword. And I think it's cool that you did that, but also that you kind of came to the conclusion that okay, I did this, but I don't want to keep doing this. But ultimately, I think your stuff has been really good, and I like your explanation of, you know, you're making a guide to make a guide, right? Whereas, you watch a video from Tettles or even me to an extent, right? And like a lot of the times I'm watching Tettles because I'm just, I want to clean up my room or I'm bored or I want to listen to something about WoW, right? Not because, okay, Tettles made this video for this purpose and I really want to know the content of this video, right? I'm just listening to Tettles, right? And I think that it's, that's a very, not to say this in a bad way, but you do have a very like WoW brain mindset of just like, a lot of WoW players are like, what am I trying to accomplish? What do I want to do? Okay, I'm watching a video only because I want this information and I want this, right? And then you perfectly deliver it to them of, okay, here's all the things you're looking for. Here's nothing else. Here's the information. Take it and then go about what you want
I
with
mean,
it. And I think
I'm
that's a cool way to do content in WoW.
I've noticed reactionary content just in general is doing a lot worse lately on YouTube specifically. Obviously, streaming is a little bit different, but on YouTube, I've been noticing that reactionary content's doing a lot worse, while Zorthas's content's actually doing a lot better alongside that. And I think that the formula that you have is actually working quite well.
I mean, Tell example, Tell is making like video essays now. Like
Yeah.
that's like a unique space in like actual retail, right? Like, no one's really making video essays about current things.
I think video essays for me is just something I've always kind of been interested in. But like, again, I think that the reading the patch notes, the reactionary content, as it's been doing worse over time, I think that people are going to YouTube for WoW content for different things. And I think also it's tough whenever the game mode is separated as much with like classic versus retail, because I think you actually really want a YouTube channel to capture both sides of that audience in some capacity.
Yeah, I mean, and there are downsides to my videos. Like, I get basically no views on any videos past the first like 2 days.
Yeah, no mid-roll
it's
ads on
all-
some of your fucking views. Actually, that is insane to me. Okay.
Mid-roll, I have mid-roll ads on.
You don't get them for videos shorter than 8 minutes, man.
Yeah, I
yeah,
think he
you
means
don't,
the
but-
duration, right? Well, like
Oh.
that's exactly why I think the viewer, and again, as a content creator, I think this might just be a mistake, but as a viewer, you really appreciate it. Of hey, Zorthas put out a video. This video is 4 minutes long because he's not gonna stretch out his shit for no reason. Like he's just gonna give you exactly what you want and then have it, right? And as a viewer, I think people really appreciate that. As a content creator, that's a decision to make. But yeah, I think what Tettles is talking about is just like not. I mean, essentially artificially stretching out a video to get to 8 minutes just so that you can put mid rolls in there.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you open up your YouTube and you see a guide on how to use Ascendant Void Cores and it's 2 minutes long, and then someone else has a guide and it's 10 minutes long, and which one are you gonna click, right? So I think I just think it's like inappropriate to have like a long video if it's a short topic. But I have been having like some longer videos recently. I'm posting like more opinion videos.
Yeah.
They're about like 10 minutes, or like things about summarizing everything and happening in PTR.
Your raid video today was really good. I thought that was very well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was about all I had. I guess I had one more statement. You don't have to comment on this, but on the topic of monetization and content and stuff, um, I feel like your stuff is extremely underappreciated in terms of like not only are you doing this on YouTube, but also like you like your viewer to sub ratio I think is low, and that like your stream is great and you're very genuine and people just don't fucking sub to you, man. So if you're listening to this right now and you have a Prime and you appreciated the pod, or you're somebody who watches this content on YouTube or Twitch, I would highly encourage peeps to show Zorthas some love and help him continue doing this, because I think the WoW space is definitely much better with you here doing your thing.
I also heard a rumor that at 300 subs, Zorthas is going to have a room cleaning stream.
All right, there you go. Or if you were tilted by his room being messy and you know that he needs to clean, like, look, all right, come on, help the guy out. Let's at least get him to this goal of being able to clean his fucking room before next tier. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That was the last bit. I'm glad I got to talk to you about it. I feel like all of the conversations are very good. I really appreciate you coming on. Any last shout outs or things or anything that you think needs to be heard by the people?
Not really. Well, I'll say, okay, I'm streaming almost every day on the PTR. I'm gonna be making more content on the PTR. If you want to know things that are coming out in the next season, I will be there.
Yeah,
All right, he will be there.
Yeah, for me personally, like when I want to hear things about PTR, if you hear anything from me, very likely it probably came from Zorthas or Zorthas' stream. I think that Yoda streams a lot of PTR, but even he's been dabbling a little bit. I would say that for like anything other than tanking, because correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you tank much. I feel like you are like probably one of the best sources for any PTR stuff right now.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so
Thanks
much,
for coming
Zorthas,
on.
for showing up.
Thank you. Goodbye.